She doesn't want your smile. She doesn't crave your abs. She doesn't even remember the car you drove. What she does remember is the man who didn't chase her, the man who didn't flinch, the one who moved like he knew every room belonged. To him, Machiavelli once said, "Men are driven by two principal impulses, love and fear." But he never chased love. He used it, shaped it, weaponized it in the modern world. You've been lied to, taught to be nice, to be yourself, to wait your turn. But attraction isn't democratic. It doesn't vote. It submits, and it submits not to looks, but to power disguised as restraint. This isn't about seduction. It's about control, psychological gravity, the cold fire that pulls without permission. Because what women want more than looks is a man who doesn't need them to want him. Machiavelli would never call desperation strength. The real game. Don't impress her. Impress reality itself. They told you to be charming. Smile, compliment her. Be funny, be vulnerable, be nice. They told you charisma would make you irresistible. That if you could just say the right thing, she'd fall. They lied, because the man who needs to be liked has already lost the room. Machiavelli wrote that men are governed by the sense of sight far more than by the sense of touch. And what they see, what they believe they see, is more powerful than anything you actually are. Charisma is not loud. It is not the clever story, the perfect punchline, or the charming glance across the table. Charisma is silence that demands explanation. It is the way you don't chase, the way your voice doesn't rise, the way you look through the moment as if you already own something deeper too. Machiavelli, charisma without power was decoration, pleasant but irrelevant, like a royal robe on a beggar. You can wear the smile, but if you haven't built the empire behind your eyes, she feel it. Because women don't crave performers. They crave certainty, stillness, the psychological gravity of a man who's already chosen himself. The illusion of charisma. What most men believe is that being liked leads to desire. That approval is attraction, but real desire isn't born in comfort. It's born in tension, in the quiet dissonance of not knowing where she stands. A man who needs to be liked will always speak too soon, reveal too much. He will narrate his soul, waiting for applause. But Machiavelli would never call that strength. He believed in the art of masks, the utility of silence. He knew that mystery bends the will more than honesty ever could. So why do they fall for the one who barely speaks? Why do they orbit the man who doesn't explain himself? Why do they return to the presence that never asked them to stay? Because in a world full of men who seek validation, power is the absence of need. Charisma is not volume, it's the storm you do not show, the fire you never point to, the confidence to leave the stage mid-performance and never return. She won't remember what you said. She remember how calm you were in the silence. She remember how your stillness made her question her own reflection. To Machiavelli, emotions were tools used when useful, silenced when not. And if charm is your only weapon, you've already surrendered your edge. Charisma without distance is hunger. Charisma without control is noise. What makes you magnetic is not your performance. It's your indifference to being watched, because a man who can walk away without flinching is a man who owns the stage, even in absence. The shift begins here. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be liked. You are here to become a presence that questions her reality. Let your charm be unspoken. Let your power speak in how little you need to speak at alas. Machiavelli might whisper behind closed doors. Let them wonder if you care. The unknown commands more loyalty than confession. Principle. True charisma is the shadow of conviction, never the performance of it. She doesn't fall for the man who tries. She falls for the man who vanishes, the man who gives nothing, and yet takes everything, not her body, her mind, her focus, her anticipation. Her sleep. Machiavelli understood something modern men still haven't grasped. You don't need to win her heart. You need to occupy her thoughts. Attraction is not romance. It's warfare in silence, and the battlefield isn't her body. It's the theater behind her eyes, because the man who texts at the right time, says the right thing, plays the good guy. He becomes a memory, predictable, forgotten. But the man who interrupts her patterns, disrupts her logic, unbalances her with the timing of his withdrawal, he becomes a storm, unresolved, undecoded, unfinished. Machiavelli believed that power wasn't taken, it was engineered through perception. You do not need to be seen often. You need to be felt when you are not there. To seduce her mind, you must become a psychological glitch, a signal she can't tune out. The man who says less, then disappears. The man who shows up without warning, then doesn't explain his absence. The man who gives no pattern, no promise, no path. That man controls the entire frame. She begins adjusting herself to your silence. She rewrites your story. In her own mind, she plays both roles, chaser and justifier, without knowing why. This is not cruelty, this is strategic distance. Machiavelli. Your enemy's expectations were your greatest weapon, and in love, the expectation is presence, explanation, reassurance. Shatter those. The more she thinks she understands you, the less power you hold. So give her what she does not expect. Unpredictable calm, quiet disappearance. Controlled return. Power is not in pursuit. It's in being the man she prepares for, even when he's not there. Imagine the battlefield queen at her throne, unshaken, until one ghost disrupts the entire court. You are that ghost, not a figure, but a shadow, not a conversation, but an interruption, not a man, but a question. Be the riddle she doesn't solve. She will test you. She will tempt your consistency, but to be consistent is to be conquered. Machiavelli never asked to be understood, only to be obeyed. And in romance, obedience doesn't come from kindness. It comes from imbalance, from fire that appears, but never burns long enough to be caught. That's the trap. You think attention is gained through proximity, but proximity breeds expectation, and expectation kills obsession. You must be the storm she prepares for, the absence she imagines reasons for, the presence that resets her entire emotional atmosphere to dominate her thoughts. Don't try to please her, disturb her, not with cruelty, but with elegance, silence, and calculated unpredictability. He who builds his power on absence, Machiavelli might say, builds a fortress in the mind. Let others be predictable. Let others be consistent. Let them die as men who were understood. You will not be one of them. You will not be remembered for what you gave, but for what you withheld. Law. Control isn't what you show her. It's how long she remembers you after you leave. She pulled away and you reached out. You explained yourself, clarified your intent, told her you weren't like the others, and in that moment, she felt nothing but certainty, not about you, about her power. Machiavelli understood what most men refuse to accept. Desire cannot survive where validation lives. When you need her to want you, she doesn't. When you give her the crown, She walks out of the throne room. You think your approval is connection, but to her, it's predictable surrender. Every time you text first, every time you explain the silence, every time you apologize for your ambition, you bury the storm. She once imagined you were. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved." If you cannot be both, and fear, to him, wasn't about cruelty. It was about distance, the strategic withholding of comfort. To maintain psychological gravity, love in excess becomes noise. Validation offered freely becomes background, and you become forgettable. You see, approval feels good in the moment, but it costs you control, and control is what builds obsession. A man who offers himself without being asked becomes an item on the shelf, but a man who withdraws without explanation, who vanishes without guilt, creates a wound that rewrites her internal dialogue. She starts asking herself, why did he leave? Did I lose him? What changed? She becomes the narrator. You become the silence between the lines. To Machiavelli, loyalty was never requested. It was engineered through consequence. Never ask for loyalty. He would say, make disloyalty expensive. And in this age of instant access, of desperate messages and emotional discounts, scarcity is royalty. You don't have to prove your worth. You have to make her question hers. That doesn't mean cruelty. It means intentional absence. Pull away, not to punish, but to reassert the weight of your presence. Emotional generosity must be earned, not displayed like a banner in a dying parade. When she expects your attention, delay it. When she expects an answer, withhold it. When she expects comfort, surprise her with stillness, not because you're playing games, but because you refuse to beg for affection in a world that trades it like currency. Let her wonder. Let her wait. Let her realize that your affection was never free air, but oxygen. She must now fight, for most men drown in their desire to be accepted. They perform, they plead, they hand over the crown, then wonder why no one bows. But you are not most men. You are not building attraction. You are building cost. You are not available. You are valuable. And in the mind of a woman who once thought you were hers, that distance becomes obsession, because she cannot control it. She cannot decode it. She cannot own it. Oh, Machiavelli, this was never cruelty. It was clarity, a demonstration that your world does not orbit anyone's approval. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to rewrite what power looks like. In silence law, the more you seek approval, the less you command desire. Reclaim power by letting your absence cost more than your presence ever did. They told you to be yourself, but the self is a trap, and the man who defines himself too early limits what the world will let him become. In the age of transparency, the modern man confesses too much. He tells women what he is, what he's looking for, what he won't tolerate. I'm not into games. I'm a good guy. I just want something real. But real power doesn't announce itself. It shifts in silence. It adapts. Machiavelli wrote, the wise man acts so that when people see him, they imagine more than they see. This was not poetry. It was warfare through perception. A prince, he believed, must wear many masks, but never become any of them. To survive, to rule, to control, you must perform stability while remaining unreadable. Let them see what serves you, hide what does not. Women do not obsess over clarity. They obsess over contradiction. Not the man who is always cold, but the man who is warm once and then retreats not. The man who is always charming, but the one who disarms with silence. then sharpens her interest with a sudden look. She doesn't remember the man who explained himself. She remembers the one who complicated her understanding of him. To Machiavelli, identity was a costume worn to rule perception, not to reveal the fey soul, because to reveal is to risk, and to risk without purpose is not authenticity, it's strategic failure. Modern man thinks being real means being vulnerable, that if he's transparent, he'll be loved, but vulnerability, unguarded and unearned, becomes weightless. Power is not in being seen, it's in being interpreted. Let her guess. Let her assign meanings. Let her build narratives around your silence. You must become an emotional mirage, a figure who flickers in and out of frame, visible, but never captured, close, but never held. She must wonder, what does he want? Why does he pull away? Why do I care? These questions are more powerful than answers, because once you are defined, you are contained. And Machiavelli never played in cages. He ruled from behind the curtain. Control isn't declaring who you are. It's mastering how others imagine you. Wear the mask that suits the moment, not to deceive, but to govern perception. A gentle word to open a door, a cold stare to close one, a sudden withdrawal to reset the room. You are not here to be consistent. You are here to be impossible to solve. Let them think you're simple. Let them think they've figured you out. Then show them the version they never saw coming. This is not manipulation, it's mental sovereignty, because the man who shows every truth is left with nothing but exposure, and she will not chase what she fully understands. She will not reread a story with no mystery left. You are not a book. You are a cipher with changing symbols, a shadow that adapts to the room, a name that echoes. After you leave, let the others be authentic. Let them cry for connection. Let them wear their hearts until they're torn. You will wear the crown. You will wear the silence. You will wear the mask. Law never be fully seen, only endlessly imagined. Power belongs to the unreadable. They told you that closeness is power, that vulnerability is strength, that openness makes her feel safe. But safety doesn't create obsession. It creates comfort, and comfort is the death of desire. Machiavelli would laugh at your therapist's advice. He did not believe in emotional exposure as truth. He believed in timing, in controlled unpredictability. He understood that what is rare rules to him. Vulnerability was not intimacy. It was a trap, a calculated moment of access used to lower defenses and raise your value. You were taught to be emotionally available, but he who is always available is rarely valued. Women do not want a robot. They do not crave ice, but they are not pulled toward chaos either. They are drawn to what can't be moved. Emotional distance is not cruelty. It is reverence by design. It's the way a storm watches quietly from across the ocean, the way a king listens before he speaks, the way your eyes pause when she expects reaction and receive her words without flinch. Most men rush to feel seen. They overshare. They explain their trauma, their pain, their inner monologue, hoping it will bring connection. But what it brings is predictability. And once she maps your mind, you become familiar. The man who triggers obsession is the one she cannot explain, the one who gives her a glimpse of the storm, then disappears back into stillness. Let her wonder where your fire comes from. Let her feel the warmth once, and spend weeks asking herself why it vanished. This is not game playing. This is emotional positioning. Distance is not absence, it is atmosphere. You must become a presence that doesn't beg to be understood, a man who can walk through affection without becoming its prisoner when she says something that's meant to provoke. Pause when she reaches for your approval. Redirect when she tries to pull you closer too soon. Retreat just slightly, not to hurt her, but to remind her. Your center cannot be shaken by affection. You're not reacting, you're deciding, because every emotional response is a display of power, and every display must be earned. A man who reacts instantly reveals where he can be touched. A man who pauses makes her ask if she touched anything at all. That pause, that millisecond of stillness, that's where gravity lives. She doesn't want a man who is always silent. She wants a man who chooses when to speak, who bleeds only once and then vanishes into war. The most powerful line she ever hear from you is the one you almost say, but don't. Emotional distance is not the absence of feeling, it's the discipline to contain it, to give nothing when most would give everything, to offer warmth like firelight, and then walk away without explanation. Machiavelli never asked to be understood, only to be obeyed. He ruled through silence. He punished with absence. And when he gave anything emotional, he gave it once, then used the withdrawal to turn affection into memory. Your shift begins here. No more explaining, no more oversharing, no more rewarding presence with immediate response. You are a king behind the veil, a fire that flares, then folds back into shadow. Principle. Power is not in feeling nothing, it's in showing what you feel only once, and then never again. Obsession isn't created by intensity, it's created by pattern disturbance. She doesn't think about the man who is always there. She thinks about the one who left a dent, then vanished. Obsession is not the heat of a single moment. It is the cold return of the same presence, echoing again and again, long after the source is gone. Machiavelli wrote, "A ruler need not be loved all the time, but he must never be forgotten." And so your goal is not to be adored. It is to become unshakable architecture in the palace of her thoughts. You must become orbit, a gravitational pull, a silent center that everything else begins to rotate around. But to do this, you cannot chase, you cannot force, you cannot explain. You must create contrasts, speak less, then vanish, return with calm, then disappear again. Touch her softly, then burn the bridge with silence. These are not accidents. They are instruments, like a general orchestrating a war with smoke and absence. You must learn how to command with contradiction. One moment warmth, the next distance. One night presence, the next week nothing. This is not cruelty, it is choreography. It is emotional gravity designed with strategic indifference. She doesn't crave certainty, she craves the man she can't predict, the man whose silence isn't neglect, but narrative tension. You are no longer just a person in her life. You are a storyline she can't resolve, a film with no final scene, a chapter that ends mid-sentence, a fire that flared once then never again. And so she rewatches, she rereads, she replays, trying to decipher something you never even said. That is how obsession is born, from the absence of closure. But this requires discipline. Most men can't handle the silence. They break character, they explain themselves, they reach out too soon. Machiavelli would say, "He who does not understand the weight of absence is unfit to command presence." Obsession begins not when she has you, but when she thinks she almost did. You must learn to hold the line between chaos and calm. Let her feel both, but never at the same time. Let her think she's winning, then disappear. Let her feel close, then become unreadable. This isn't manipulation, this is mastery. the ability to turn emotional engagement into gravitational pull. She begins measuring her actions. Against your silence, she adjusts her day based on your last response. She rereads old messages because there's nothing new to interpret, and that emptiness becomes currency. You gave her fire once. Now she's addicted to smoke, but here's the cooey is the cheers, the truth. You never even tried to control her. You just refused to give her certainty, and in that void, you became central. Most men want to be present. They want to be loved loudly, seen clearly, explained fully. But the man who understands orbit knows this. Being remembered is more powerful than being understood. Let her explain you to herself. Let her guess your next move. Let her write your name into stories that never happened. And when she thinks she's moved on, show up. Once, say nothing. Let your eyes do the haunting. Then vanish again. Because orbit isn't about proximity. It's about pull, and pull is built on mystery, contrast, and the silence that reshapes the air law. Obsession is repetition without resolution. Become the story that loops in her mind without ever needing to be told again. You were handed a script at birth without asking, without reading, without questioning. They told you what a real man does. He listens, he pleases, he proves. He wakes for love, he earns approval, he plays fair. But here's the Machiavellian truth. That script was written by men with no kingdoms, men who were told to follow, not rule. You were taught to audition for roles in someone else's theater, to memorize lines you didn't write, to chase women like prizes, to beg for clarity like a child waiting for praise. But Machiavelli believed history does not favor the honest, it favors the strategic. He wrote that men rise from obscurity not through the goodwill of others, but through bold deception, violence when necessary, and the reordering of power. And you've been obedient to a narrative that was built to keep you harmless. Now it's time to burn the script and write your own. This isn't about being cold. It's about being in command. You are not here to play the nice guy. You are not here to compete with charm or compliance. You are here to author the room, to dictate the terms of every scene, to stop auditioning and start casting. Your life inside a performance directed by society's weakness. But power does not exist inside permission. Power is rewriting the rules mid-scene and letting everyone else adapt or disappear. The modern dating script tells you, be transparent, be soft, be safe. But safety doesn't build empires. Chaos does. Controlled chaos, selective exposure, calculated presence. The unpredictable rhythm of a man who does not ask to be chosen, but makes others question whether they've been seen. At all, you don't need to be the hero. Heroes die proving themselves. You need to be the architect of outcomes, the one who builds silence like walls and offers warmth only when it serves the game. Forget this story of winning her over. That tale was written by someone who lost. Machiavelli never believed in fairness. He believed in dominance through narrative. He believed in shaping reality, not submitting to it. Him. Power wasn't in truth. It was in who controlled the version of truth being told. And so you must redefine everything. Romance. It's not pursuit, it's positioning. Respect. It's not given, it's engineered. Love. It's not an accident, it's a reaction to authority. You are not here to impress her. You are here to become the lens through which she sees herself. If she feels worthy with you, that's power. If she doubts herself when you leave, that's power. If she rewrites her entire narrative just to fit into yours, that strategy executed with precision. Every interaction is now a scene. every message a line, every silence a beat. In your monologue are not being cold, you're directing tension. Let others talk about finding the one. Let others write poetry in comments and bleed on the timeline for likes. You not writing poetry, you're writing doctrine, and doctrine lasts longer than attraction. It defines the structure of what others feel long after you've gone. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the one who holds the pen. You decide when the scene changes. You decide when the dialogue ends. You decide who exits the stage. You are not a character. You are the frame, the tension, the silence, the fire. He who defines the story controls the ending principle. Stop following the script, write it, then let them audition for your world. The man she desires isn't better looking, he's better positioned, unavailable, mysterious, calm, the storm she can't read, but cannot stop watching. Machiavelli would say, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." You don't need to become someone else. You need to become unreachable in a world obsessed with access. Withdraw, reposition, control the theater. From now on, you are not chasing her. You are rewriting what she wants. Let them wonder where you went. Silence is your legacy now.